and running on a Thursday evening here in lovely Las Vegas, Nevada at the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Vegas. That is Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. We got a lot to get to today. Brad Evans going to join us in 15 minutes. We are 48 hours and 9 minutes, if you want to be exact, about it from the Final Four taking place in Glendale, Arizona. We got a discussion about first five blues. I saw a tweet out there saying, what is the toughest total to sweat? I don't know. I might have just seen it firsthand just a couple moments ago. We got injury news regarding the NBA, some significant injury news to hit on. But, JVT, I want to start with this. Last night, we were on the air, and something had me very troubled. I was very concerned about what was unfolding in Storrs, Connecticut. It was unfair, and it was outrageous that the UConn basketball team had to wait hours for their plane to arrive to get them safely to Glendale, Arizona. Now, they have made it to Glendale. Ladies and gentlemen, these young men, 18 to 22 years old, they got in to Glendale, Arizona around 3:30 in the morning local time. They left Hartford, Connecticut at 1:33 a.m. With the game happening tonight in Glendale, JVT, this is unfathomable. What a disservice. What a disadvantage. I mean, how are they going to properly rest for the game tonight? It's going to tip off in a couple hours, right?
Plus a couple of days, though.
When's the game? I thought it was tonight.
Saturday.
So wait.
2:49 p.m. Eastern, is that right? Yeah.
No, 5:49.
I don't know why I looked at 8 and just automatically subtracted 6. Yeah.
As was noted by many,
they're screwed.
The Connecticut Huskies, who, by the way, haven't gotten on a plane, I think, in a month, during the regular season, would never be in a city over 2 days before tip-off of a game. It's unique circumstances. It's the Final Four. But my goodness gracious, last night I was walking my dog and firing off texts to our group chat because it was unbelievable. I mean, we're going to hear from Dan Hurley here momentarily, by the way. Not live on the show. But please, for the love of God, can this be a story that goes away? And I said it last night on the air. I tweeted it. I fully believe it. Very tongue placed in cheek. But Dan Hurley, who is the king of motivation, a coach who seems to believe the world is against a university located in Storrs, Connecticut, who complained about having the early game in the Sweet 16 against San Diego State when his opponent had to play the final game on Sunday in Spokane, Washington, got home in the middle of the night against to San Diego, and then flew across country. This is one of the funniest stories I can recall.
At least, Jeff Goodman doing Dan Hurley some service here by saying he looks like garbage, needs more sleep, I guess. I don't know.
He's got the coffee in his hand. And can I just, on a real note, the NCAA, good on you. Because the players, the UConn players, don't have to go to their media availability day. Good. They shouldn't. They got in late in the night. Let them rest. Who cares? But this story needs to go away. Dan Hurley was the one. It wasn't a sourced thing, right? We were talking about Matt Norlander's tweets yesterday. It was courtesy of Dan Hurley. He wanted this to get out there. So I'm glad they're there safely. Should this affect the point spread? No, it should not. I think there'll be plenty of rest for this game.
Look, we saw it come off, 12 to 11.5.
That is true. Maybe. Quinky dink. Alabama, well rested. I think Nate Oates joked about it at his press conference today that he had a nice 7.5 hours of sleep last night. A little jab at Dan Hurley. World's against the UConn Huskies. Us against the world. You guys are the best team in the country. You're an 11.5 point favorite in the Final Four, 12 at some spots. So I still just have this vision of Dan Hurley being out there calling the FAA, hey, could you guys give us a plane that comes a little bit later? I need some motivation for my team. Thank you. But they're there. Thankfully, UConn has made it to Arizona. They're on the ground there in Arizona. Oh, by the way, they could have got there earlier. It was Dan Hurley's decision to practice in stores and then take a late night flight there. So they're there.
I know that.
I know everyone is. I know everyone was very worried about that. All right, a couple other things I want to hit on here. Julius Randle, who has been sidelined on a more serious note, who has been sidelined, is now officially ruled out for the rest of the season, JVT. So from a future standpoint, we've seen the market move out on the Knicks after 2 months of rehab, as Adrian Wojnarowski put earlier today. Julius Randle will indeed undergo season-ending right shoulder surgery. What does this mean for the Knicks moving forward when it comes to a game-to-game price, an Eastern Conference price, and when they ultimately make the postseason? As of right now, they're the 5 seed. What does this mean in a potential series price against a team like the Orlando Magic?
I mean, that's the tough part. So the big thing is, obviously, Julius Randle not being there hurts. This is a team that is predicated on offensive rebounding. They had some pretty good size when at full strength. You could really beat some teams up on the offensive glass. Julius Randle, as we know, is a scorer in his own right too, Tim. So it really hurts you in all regards when it comes to what the Knicks can be at full strength. And what really sucks, too, for this team is, you know, when they were playing at their best, when they had everybody out there, this is a team that maybe was going to finish with a 3 seed, get inside of that bracket with what looks to be a very vulnerable Milwaukee Bucks team who, by the way, lost again yesterday to the Memphis Grizzlies. Don't really care that Chris Middleton and Damian Lillard weren't playing. You take care of business at home against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they did not. But I think now to not only lose Julius Randle, but then to go into a series against an Orlando Magic team that looks great defensively. I mean, they went to New Orleans yesterday and kicked some rear end. They looked absolutely incredible on the road there against the Pelicans, a team they had just beaten for the second time in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's a really big blow for them. And even if you get OG Anunoby back, Tom Thibodeau said today that they are, quote, cautiously optimistic about Anunoby. He was cleared for contact, I think, this week, so it's a pretty big deal. But overall, it just sucks. It just sucks because this team, I think at full strength with Julius Randle out there, was a team that had they had finished in that 2-3 area, right, that being that they would have gotten into that matchup in that second round, they could have totally beat the Milwaukee Bucks. They could have totally made it to an Eastern Conference Finals. But instead, you're sitting in a 4-5 with a really tough Orlando Magic team that can defend you if you're going to play these small lineups. Because remember, they've been playing these 4-guard lineups now, which on paper have been really effective with Brunson, McBride, DiVincenzo, and Hart. But your power forward, Josh Hart's 6'4". You know, like you're playing really small with the big, and you're talking about playing a first-round series against an Orlando Magic team that is big and long and very good defensively. It's just pretty tough. Now, OG Anunoby comes back. It's still a winnable first-round series for New York, but I think that you're definitely looking at a firm ceiling of second round here for New York after a tough-fought series in the first round, because that second round is going to be against the Boston Celtics. And God forbid you got to play this small lineup against Boston, because then all of a sudden, I mean, you can chalk it up to variance. You could shoot as many threes as you possibly can and try to win in that regard. But that's going to be really tough sledding against Boston should you make it past the Orlando Magic.
New York Knicks tonight laying 3.5 against the Sacramento Kings at Madison Square Garden. One of 5 games on the NBA slate this evening. As always, we're free on YouTube. Our first hour of the program, youtube.com/VSiN Live. You can always tweet the show. He's at me, JVT. I'm at one Tim Murray. Brad Evans going to come up in 5 minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the Final Four, best bets that he has in the hopper. We're going to start our NFL draft best bets. Each of us have a play that we do like, and we have been monitoring a bunch of mock drafts as we are 3 weeks out from the NFL draft. So we will get those as well. Best bets for tonight coming up as well here momentarily. But JVT, before we hit a break here, I saw a tweet from friend of the show, Todd Furman, and just a simple question that said, what is the toughest sport to sweat and under? No. And my answer was basketball. Yes. basketball is brutal, especially if, let's just say, you had the under in the Alabama-Clemson game and there was 111 points with under 8 minutes to go and it still flew over every single number. It's not fun. It's not fun to sweat unders in basketball. I think you would agree.
Was it Florida State? Well, who did Florida State play in the first round of the ACC tournament where they started fouling with like 2 minutes left and they scored 30 points in the last like 2.5 minutes? Whatever. Go ahead.
But I did witness you come into the studio. Hey, we need to get the Guardians-Twins game on. VSiN.com, you had a write-up. First 5 under. Bottom of the 5th. Under 4.
Sitting on 3 runs. Yeah, Tanner Bybee gave up a solo shot, to make it 3-1. So got a push. They got out of it, and there was one that just barely got
like
over.
Wall
it hit
scraper.
It hit the top of the wall and bounced back into the field of play. Yeah, it sucked. But no, I think sweating unders, absolutely, it would be brutal. I mean, as somebody who has watched a lot of NBA basketball, I think it's specifically NBA unders, which is a nightmare before they started changing the officiating. But yeah, no shot.
First 5 blues. I didn't like that. I didn't like the mojo coming into the studio. We'll hand out some winners.
Got some news for you.
Bottom of the hour, what's that?
Joel Embiid looks like he's going to play today, folks. Numbers moving as we speak.
All right, there you go. Brad Evans, he's always ready to play. He's got his best bets for the Final Four. He's coming up next here on VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Make sure you check out the betting splits access up on the website at VSiN.com, folks. It is free for the next 2 weeks. You can see where the money and bets are moving for every single game. Yeah, that's right. All you got to do is go to VSiN.com/splits. Get started today. No account. Just go to VSiN.com/splits.
People love the betting splits. I love the betting splits. They're free. Just like we are right now on YouTube, youtube.com/VSiN Live. And, you know, if you don't just want to see our lovely faces, well, there's no one more that I would like to see on this lovely Thursday than the man, the myth, the legend himself from Live on the Line, Brad Evans, at Noisy Huevos on Twitter. Can I read you something, Brad, before we get into some plays? I want to get your thoughts. I have a quote, maybe one that's uplifting. Can I read you an uplifting quote?
Yeah, please speak sweet nothings into my ear, amigo.
Okay. Quote, we can't give them these big runs that everybody gives up. Can you pull them away from the rim? We can't play Grant Nelson at the We can play Grant Nelson at the 5 if he's making shots, but we certainly aren't going to just drive the ball at Klingon. I mean, what coach, Brad Evans, would just drive the ball at Donovan Klingon? I mean, that seems like a silly plan of attack to try to win a basketball game. Could you imagine a coach's plan of just attacking Klingon on UConn?
Oh, yeah, I know of one immediately that comes to mind that might be from my beloved institution that is called the University of Illinois. Yeah, Brett Underwood, I'm talking to you. Attempted to do that there in the first half. Got clowned, got punked as Dominic Klingon was swatting shots all over the place, and Illinois got utterly destroyed. That really sparked at the end of that half a 30-0 run. Of course, Underwood at halftime said, hey, guys, shoot more threes. They responded with still attacking Klingon the first 5 minutes, the second half downhill. Then they stepped out to the arc, but it was all she wrote, and they went on a 1 for 19 run during that stretch. And UConn, meanwhile, just continued, put up stupid numbers, and I got more and more depressed and more drunk, trying to quell the nerves and the disappointment watching my beloveds fail miserably.
I apologize a little bit. That, by the way, that quote, by the way, was from Nate Oates, the head coach of Alabama, who will be trying to figure out a way to beat.
He knows math.
He does. He was a math teacher. He was a high school math teacher 10 years ago. All right, let's get into it, though, the Final Four. I know you've got some thoughts on the NIT final, which we'll get to momentarily. But let's start with UConn. You've got a couple SGPs, as you always do, thegamingjuice.com. So let's start with the UConn-Alabama game. How are you looking to attack this game from a same-game parlay perspective?
Yeah, I'm taking UConn down to -6.5, and then I'm going to take the total up or down, excuse me, to 151.5 and slam that over. If you put those hands together and get it even Steven juice right now at BetMGM is where I build it. DraftKings, I think, is very similar on those options as well. But you look at Alabama, they are 49 spots lower, according to Bart Torvik's advanced numerics here for last month, than what they have achieved, and a team that lives by the three and certainly dies by the three. Nearly 50% of their jacks this season have come along the perimeter. Now, you can beat UConn if they have a very soft spot. It's out there along the three-point arc, though they've been outstanding defensively over last month in that regard. So Mark Sears and company really going to have to splishy and splash early and often. I think the magic number here is probably 12 to 13 threes to make this thing somewhat competitive. And, taking the backdoor element out of the equation here and taking that spread down to the 6.5, I think the points are really going to pile up in this game. The pace is going to be brisk. And whether if it's Klingon or Newton or Cam Spencer, it's not going to matter. UConn's getting enough buckets they're not going to have to really survive. They're going to advance, I think, in convincing fashion, but building a little cushion to avoid any pushing and counting on the over to hit on that all total, I think, is the way to play it on the SGP.
All right, what about this next matchup? And I know you've got something built into this, and you're tying it to UConn too, but Purdue and NC State. This is a pro-Purdue show. Will it continue with you?
Yeah, and I'm going to live in the middle here, guys. So cue the Jimmy World in the background. The way I'm going to play this, my favorite SGP is taking Purdue down to -1.5, jacking the spread way up on State to +19.5, and taking the total way up to 155.5, and windmill slam dunking that under because, let's be honest, Cincy State is really bared their teeth defensively here in this NCAA tournament. No team yet has shot above 40% from the floor against them. They've been marvelous. They've been outstanding. Of course, though, Zach Edey's a completely different monster. I know DJ Burns is a feel-good story, and he has been unbelievable. Those ballerina feet, though, he's built like, a refrigerator out there, splishing and splash all over the place from 15 feet or in closer to the rim, but, Zach Edey's a completely different monster. So I think NC State's going to hang somewhat in this game because of their defensive prowess that they've, show, but Purdue has been outstanding in their own right defensively. And I'll give you the numbers to back it up. Here over the last 30 days, number 45 in all of college basketball at EFG defense. They're only giving up 47.4% inside the arc and 29.7% outside of it. So, the pumpkin carriage about to arrive there for Cinderella. Purdue marches on an inevitable clash with UConn for the national title.
Brad Evans, our good friend at Noisy Huevos on Twitter. Make sure you check out his website, thegamingjuice.com. All his plays are up there, including some Major League Baseball plays as well. We do have one game tonight. We have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Milk Chamberlain, whatever nickname you like for Robbie Avila, you can utilize. Yesterday on the show, my best bet was Indiana State on the money line, -150. I like where that juice has moved in my favor, up to -160, -165. We've seen the point spread go up as well. Now, I get it. This is going to be a public play. People are going to want to back Indiana State, knowing this game is at Hinkle Fieldhouse, knowing that they have, Rex Specs there himself as their best player. All of that put together, but I like this Indiana State team. They seem like they're on a mission to take care of business and get this championship. Seton Hall's been playing really good defense, though. On the other hand, what do you anticipate tonight at Hinkle Fieldhouse, this game starting top of the hour?
Yeah, let's go with Larry Nerd, the other nickname I like tied to Robbie Avila. And look, I think he has been just a sensation this year. The pick-and-pop game with him, especially outside, has just been brutalizing to opposing teams. I think it's going to be more of the same. I mean, Seton Hall, decent defensively, but they're not extraordinary by any right. You look at them statistically, number 134 in EFGD here last month. Very good offensive team. Kadari Richmond, Alamir Dawes, Dre Davis, those guys can fill up the cup in their own right. Indiana State, a lackluster number 244 in EFGD, but it's that offense. The sets, the execution, the spacing of Indiana State is a joy to watch, and they're more than Avila with Jason Kent and Conwell and Isaiah Swope. Those guys just get buckets, whether at the rim or from outside. Over the last 30 days, they're shooting a ridiculous 64.8% from inside the arc and 38.6% outside of it. It's going to be briskly played. It's going to be up and down. Very partisan crowd in attendance. It's going to be packed with baby blue in the stands, not the more royal blue Seton Hall colors, as Terre Haute is only 70 miles away from Hinkle there in Indy. So with the full energy backing that the Sycamores are going to get in this game, I love Indiana State. I took them on the line at -2.5 when it opened. I would still play it at 3.5. And I just added this to the free and always public spreadsheet there on the gamingjuice.com. I like ISU over 82.5 points. I pulled that at DraftKings in the alt market, and you're getting that, guys, at a seduced by the juice plus 110. There could be another 85 plus tonight. They've already scored 100, not once but twice in this NIT stretch.
By the way, I'm a big fan of Larry Bird's commercial. I think it's solid with Mayhem, where he's in the attic looking for the bird with the lacrosse stick. Solid.
By the way, I'll submit Steph Blurry as a nickname as well.
Yeah, very good.
Hey, before we let you run, obviously we are still months away from the start of the NFL season when you'll be on the show giving out your favorite player props. Early thoughts of the impact for not Stephon Diggs to Houston, but for a guy like Dalton Kincaid and what he will mean come fantasy draft time and all of that. What do you think this does for his target shares and things like that?
Yeah, it's going to be enormous. It's probably going to be in the 21 to 23% target share range would be my estimation. I'm really curious to see what his receptions prop comes out at. Could be somewhere in like the low to mid 60s, and he could easily eclipse that, provided the injury amp doesn't come a biting, because there's going to be so much work available to him. And a guy that's really just a tight end in name only. He's more or less a slot receiver. And, of course, that was the bread and butter of Stephon Diggs, some of those dirty routes in the short to intermediate field, and now that action slides to Kincaid. We'll see what they do with the NFL draft. They're the Buffalo Bills, and what other moves they make this offseason, but the value on that needle pointing way north for him. And also for C.J. Stroud in Houston, adding Diggs to that mix, I would get some MVP tickets out on him. I'll probably get that right now at a handsome juice available at DraftKings.
Mr. Evans, enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the weekend, and we will talk to you soon.
Make it rain, Sycamores. I'm going to miss betting on you guys. I love you.
TheGamingJuice.com, our best bets for tonight. Coming up next.
This is VSiN PrimeTime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Make sure you check out the website, folks. A lot of great content up there at VSiN.com. Articles on today's slate from myself and Zach Cohen in the NBA. You've got your daily best bets from one Adam Burke in Major League Baseball, although the vast majority of the games have already been played. We only got one that's left later today, and more. Check it out now. Plus, we should add free access to the betting splits at VSiN.com/splits. VSiN.com.
Check out those betting splits as we get to our best bet portion of the program. Looks like some money coming in on the Pirates of Seton Hall right now. 40% of the bets, 43% of the handle on Seton Hall. I did see that Matt Humans took 3.5 with the Pirates. Yesterday, my best bet was Indiana State on the money line at -150. So hopefully we could thread the needle and have a Indiana State 1 to 3 point victory. And everybody sings Kumbaya. Will the Marlins, Jonathan Von Tobel, win their first game of the season? They are 0-7, currently up 5-4 against the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, bury the lead of the fact that also in the middle of potentially blowing this. They were up 5-3. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say they're going to blow it. I'm going to say it's going to be official. We're now obviously in one-run game territory, which they were somewhat lucky in last year. Will they do it again? I'll say no. I think they lose. How about that?
All right. Hot take. I got a hot take.
In fact, let's see what the in-game price is.
I was going to look it up right now at DraftKings.
What do we got?
Looks like in-game, the Cardinals plus 114 at DraftKings as we have a pitching change.
I'll take a piece. Let's go.
All right.
Let's have fun. Let's track something.
Well, while we have a best bet placed there, maybe I'll jump in as well. Let's get to the best bet portion of the program. I believe we've got ourselves a little animation, a little fancy dancy thing. Time for some best bets.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
All right, there you go. Looking good, all in, putting it all in. I mean, this is live right now. We got a bet being put in by Jonathan Von Tobel while he searches said phone there.
Cool. Is that fun?
I'm gonna go ahead and put it in. I've been waiting. Wanted to get an 8. Maybe we get an 8. Patience sometimes, as they say, a virtue. But I'm gonna lay the 8.5. That's available at a shop here in town and a shop that is nationally out there. We're going to lay the 8.5 with Purdue. The juice was minus 105 yesterday. It's back to minus 110 at Caesars William Hill. We've talked about it a lot. I like this Purdue team. I like the matchup for Purdue with Zach Edey versus DJ Burns. We will discuss props and angles certainly as the show goes on tomorrow, especially for this Final Four showdown. Look, NC State, congratulations on this remarkable run that you're on. Kevin Keatts was about to be fired as their head coach, and now he has got a multi-year extension as they have headed to the NCAA tournament with that win over North Carolina in the ACC championship. One thing to point out that I think needs to be mentioned: opponents shooting 28 of 117 from 3 against NC State. Is there some luck involved? I would say, yeah, a little bit. Do you know that Purdue, up until recently, as the St. Louis Cardinals take the lead, was the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country? Mm-hmm. They are number 2 right now at 40.6. Do I anticipate a defense that has allowed just 24% from 3 to continue? I do not. Do I expect Zach Edey to continue to dominate down low? I do. So I'm laying the 8.5 with Purdue. I know the public is loving them some Wolfpack, loving the Cinderella story. I'm going to be the turd in the punch bowl. I'm going to lay it here with the Boilermakers. I think you're getting them a little bit on sale. So give me Purdue, lay the 8.5. By the way, I know everybody wants to, whoa, Tim, what's the Ken Palm number?
Do people want to know that? Do they talk like that?
I think they do. Purdue by 11, according to the all-knowing Ken Palmer.
What about Bart Torvik?
Bart Torvik?
What about Haslametrics? What about Greg Peterson?
I don't know. Greg? I don't know what Greg is.
Sorry. What about Bart Torvik?
Yeah, you got to get to the voice like that. Same score at Bart Torvik.
Wow.
Getting value, people. Lay the 8.5.
Agreed.
With Purdue.
So
Boiler up. Whoop. All right. I'm done.
I agree with that, by the way. I am going to bet Purdue. Same thing with the
Diamond strong hands.
That's right. Diamond strong hands. Let's just sit back and wait. As we get closer to game time, I would assume as the betting public gets more involved that we're going to see now respected money. We don't. I assume it's going to be on Purdue. I don't know. But I will say that I think I'm just going to hold back and just see how cheap it gets. You know, I think I'm going to be able to grab the 8.5 whenever.
I would like. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, I'd lay the 8, but we haven't gotten the 8 yet. So 9 pretty much across the board. But Caesars William Hill does have 8.5. Cardinals in-game play from Mr. Von Tobel leads 6-5 plus money. What price did you get?
I got plus 105.
Nice. So. A little plus money there. All right, what do you got for us tonight?
Not much. Let's see. So I pushed back here a little bit on the betting market. We'll see if this goes well again. But it's funny, as we sit here, we're starting to see the board light up and go in all sorts of different directions. So we saw Sacramento and New York in the NBA. The total opened up at 216 overnight, Tim. We're down to now on the screen 211.5 at a couple of spots. Look, the market has been really low on these totals for the New York Knicks for like a while now. And yet, 7 out of the last 8 games have now gone over the total. If you remember on Tuesday, I bet the game over there against them in the Miami Heat. That game got over the total as well. So the market really does like to bet these games under. And it does make sense that you would do that. Look, you're talking about a team that plays at a pretty slow pace, plays pretty good defense. However, in recent weeks, since we have seen this dip here, since we've seen this shift in this lineup with these 4 guards out there, they're taking way more threes than their season-long metrics would tell you. They're obviously making those threes at a pretty decent clip. They're a little bit smaller, so perimeter defense a little bit harder to come by. I think that the market Understandably so, if you want to bet under like a 216 on a slow pace game, I get it. But the fact that this continues to go down, push back a little bit here and bet this game over. In fact, I actually bet a bad number. It's 212.5 and 212 in other spots. Like I said, if you go to the right places, you're looking at 211.5. But this is where this total's all over. There's a 213 and there's a 213 and a 211.5 on the board.
So for someone who covers and follows the NBA as closely as you do, to see a market where a respected shop here in town is 211.5, and right behind us is at 213. What do you make of the discrepancy of 1.5 points? Do you see that often?
I think you do. Yeah, you see it every once in a while, and we'll see exactly, because this will probably even out here relatively quickly, like in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, you'll get some number grabbers.
Yeah, but I think for me, what's more, I guess we'll call it astonishing, is the fact that we saw this open 216. We're down to as low as 211.5, and there's no real injury news that had shifted this, right? If, for example, later today, we know that Kawhi Leonard was ruled out after the overnight numbers came out. So with that number opening 1 in favor of Denver, getting up to as high as 4.5, well, that makes sense because Kawhi Leonard was ruled out after that number came out. The fact that this opened as high as 216 and has dropped here, and the notable names on the injury report are Josh Hart and Mitchell Robinson, that's like not enough to, I think, move it 4.5 points in one direction. So I'm willing to push back. As I mentioned, the Knicks have been going over their totals because the market has been very low on them. And I think that we're just at the point now where the market, rightfully so, because this is one of the best under teams in the NBA, was betting these games under. But with this shift in the starting lineup, you've seen some profits in going over. So try it one more time and see what happens. And we'll see where the market evens out at. I would assume they're probably going to even out at about like 212.5 or something like that, 212.
All right. So under over 211.5 in Knicks and Kings. How about late night? We've seen a movement here. Denver at the Clippers. Clippers now at some shops out to a 4.5. I see a 4.5 out there. We'll call it market-wide 4. But what do you like? Clippers, Nuggets, late night games, 10 o'clock Eastern in L.A., some 4.5s out there.
Yeah, I think I'd recommend waiting to see if Jamal Murray's going to play. I did grab 4.5 because figured that this was just going to be a number grab and that Jamal Murray's going to take one more night off, and we'll see this close at about 3.5. But we don't have any official word. I've been looking this whole time to see whether or not Jamal Murray's going to play. So you've been seeing it toggle back and forth. The one shop, as you mentioned, is at 4.5. Other spots move down to 3.5 until we know exactly what's going to happen with Murray, who, again, I should note, he's been questionable for every single game he's missed. So this is not some indication that he's been upgraded or anything like that. But no, Kawhi Leonard, as we know, as I kind of pointed out today in the article too, there's matchups that they can go after if they so choose. But here's the note that's going to scare you off of the Clippers. Tim, they are 2-10 straight up in their last 12 games at home. They've covered 3 of those. Actually, it's inverse of that. 3-9, 2-10 against the spread. They have trailed by double digits in 10 out of their last 12 home games. So haven't played very well at home, but I think that we're kind of getting to the point where the market's getting a little too low on them. So I'll grab 4.5 in a game that they can, if they try, get some matchups. But again, I'd recommend waiting for Jamal Murray to get officially ruled in or out.
All right, so we're going to wait a little bit, but look for the Clippers plus the points against the Nuggets. We're going to take the over in the Knicks game. For me, Purdue, we're going to lay it. We're not going to be patient. We're going to lay that 8.5. And also from yesterday, Indiana State tonight on the money line. Your primetime primer, getting you ready for all of the 7 o'clock Eastern games. We'll do that next right here on VSiN Primetime. Go Cards!
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Get in on the action, folks. We got a new offer for you, and it's an exclusive offer for DraftKings customers from VSiN. Earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager. You can earn up to $2,500 worth of bonus bets in your first 3 days on DraftKings. So don't wait. Download the app now. Use the code PRIME, P-R-I-M-E, when you sign up. Earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager now.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Reed Kuhn going to join us in studio. He's in the house. We will break down the card for this weekend's fight night and a look ahead to UFC 300, which will take place here in Las Vegas, I believe, right? In a week. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to Reed's thoughts on both this weekend's card as well as UFC 300 coming up next weekend. So a couple NBA games ahead on just a recap of our best bets. One thing to note, don't like this. Seton Hall money starting to hit the market as the minus 150 that I scooped yesterday got up to minus 165, and it's back down to minus 150. So, hey, no closing line value. We will roll with what the market price is. It does feel like a bit of a trendy favorite here in Indiana State. They took care of business on Tuesday against Utah. Of course, Seton Hall did as well. This game coming up top of the hour should be a fun one. Very contrasting styles in the NIT championship. Indiana State, one of the better offenses in the country, 12th in offensive efficiency. You look at some of the metrics, played one of, if not the best, their best game from an offensive standpoint on Tuesday. So maybe you get a little regression. And then Seton Hall, for them, hitting a lot of open shots against Georgia. We talked about the shot quality score of that game being 84-80 versus Georgia, as opposed to the real score of 84-67. So really good defense at Seton Hall, really good offense in Indiana State. Something's got to give. We will ride with the Sycamores here, but it is worth noting money coming into the market here on Seton Hall. The hooks were all scooped up and sits 3 market wide, minus 150 for that total. Recap of your favorite plays real quickly before we take a look at a primetime primer and get into a little basketball plays. You got 2 NBA plays on your card this evening.
Yeah, over in the Knicks-Kings game, by the way, that number, as we talked about, the 211.5, it's getting right back up to 212.5. The one book that got to as low as 211.5 is right up a full point. So over in Knicks and Kings, and grab the points. Grab 4.5. I think you still grab 4 with the LA Clippers. 4s and 4.5 starting to disappear, so maybe we're going to get some news here pretty soon that Jamal Murray is not going to play. It shouldn't move drastically, by the way. I mean, again, this number is kind of baked into the fact that Murray's very questionable. So probably going to move about a half point or so if he plays, if he doesn't. So
Clippers catching 3.5. You can catch a 4 if you look long and hard out there with the Clippers. By the way, as we got into our best bets, JVT pulled out the old mobile device and fired on the Cardinals in game when they were down 5-4. And currently the price minus 3,200 on the Cardinals. That would be good value there.
I middle it. Should I hedge? Yeah, look at this hedge on this ridiculous, just simple in game. I deserve it after getting the push on the first 5 total earlier today. So on the solo homer that hit the top of the wall.
I do want to get into your mindset regarding first 5 bets. So you played every Tuesday and Thursday on VSiN.com. You could read JVT's write-ups on some first 5 plays. So what did you write about today in regards to, playing these first 5s and how you're looking to attack said first 5s?
Well, and I think today, so I wrote about it a little bit. There's actually a really good example of that out there of why I like to bet first 5s as opposed to the full games. So let's take a look at the Houston Astros for an example. So the Astros so far this season, I believe, are 2-5. Right? They got off to a little bit of a rough start. They've taken some tough losses, Tim, the other day. They send Josh Hader out there against the Toronto Blue Jays, and he actually coughs up a hit and then a home run, and they end up losing. They were up 1-0. They end up losing that game. So they're 2-5 to start the season in 7 games. We're not freaking out about the Astros. We got 162 total games. What are you talking about? 155 left. So they're going to be fine. But I think it's a good example of what we're talking about. The Astros, despite being 2-5, Tim, on the season, are actually 6-1 in first 5s. So they have taken care of business in these first 5 innings. The reason why I like to bet these first 5s is it takes the volatility away of some bullpen performances. And if you look at the numbers for the Houston Astros bullpen early in the year, Astros relievers so far have a 6 flat ERA, a 6.79 fielding independent, and as I mentioned, Hader coughed one up the other day. So to me, why I like betting first 5s, this is, I just think, a really good example of that, which is you handicap the starting pitchers, you look at those numbers, and you go from there. And more often than not, you don't have to worry about the volatility of when does the next reliever come in, what's going to be the situation of the count, all the sort of things that really change the dynamic of a game. Instead, I'm pretty certain, right, I'm going to get 5 innings, both ends, probably both starters, and I can handicap it in that way. So that's how I like to bet these things, and I thought Houston was a really good example of that. I also think, too, again, and this is the other part I wrote about, and I've kind of made sarcastic comments when we've talked off the air about this, but I brought up Nestor Cortez. Nestor Cortez is a guy that I believed to kind of be I didn't really buy the whole he's going to be fine. Sure enough, through 2 starts, the Yankees are 0-2 in the first 5 of his starts. So, like, that's something, too, where you're looking at this and, if you have these pitchers that you have on your radar to either go against or follow through with, then I think that it behooves you to kind of go down that angle. And sure enough, if you are 2-0 if you faded Nestor Cortes in his first 2 starts here as a New York Yankee in the first 5 innings. Remember, they did come back the other day against the Houston Astros on opening day to win that game. But regardless, those are kind of 2 angles. But I thought the Astros thing was a really good example of that. Of like, look, that's why I kind of do this, because like the Astros are going to be fine. But the fact that if you bet the Astros in those games and you're feeling pretty good through the first 7, right, about these performances, ultimately to blow it, kind of sucks.
I mean, the Tigers today had a no-hitter through 8 innings and lost in 9 innings to the Mets. So the Mets earlier today got their first victory of the season. I think that was the back end. Yeah, that was game 2 of the doubleheader. They were no-hit through 8 innings, or into the 8th, and ended up walking off the Tigers for their first win of the season, 2-1. Another guy to note that you look at the regression for the Marlins, a team that was 31-9. Was it 31-9 in 1-run games? 33-9.
I don't think was it that extreme. I think I'll have to look what it is.
Yeah, look it up, because it was ridiculous. Another guy that I know well from
33-14.
33-14, it's insane. Josiah Gray of the Nationals.
Yes.
He is a guy that pitches to contact, not a big strikeout pitcher.
Some command issues.
The number, his ERA was pretty low last year, made the All-Star team. He has been horrendous so far, and certainly could be a guy to keep an eye on to fade. His first 2 starts, he's allowed 6 earned or more in each of those 2 starts. Not a big strikeout guy. You talked about the command being an issue as well. So this could be a guy to keep an eye on, depending on price. And the Pirates took it to him earlier today.
Well, so I think that's a really good example, too, of something. And it's funny because if my notebook, when I was going through everything, I had jotted down, keep fading Josiah Gray.
Yep.
Because if you look at it, and this is a good example of why, I think advanced metrics really help you out in baseball. So last year on the surface, if you look, 159 innings for Josiah Gray, 391 ERA. You'd be like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, he was an all-star.
There's no reason to think that that's untenable. But if you looked at his underlying metrics, 493 fielding independent, 503 expected ERA, even the expected fielding independent at 512, these numbers that kind of give you a more basic idea of how a pitcher is performing, taking out all the other things that can influence an ERA. You looked at it, you're like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't actually too great. Maybe he was getting away with some stuff. He had command issues last year. In fact, his walk rate's right in line with where he was last year as well. He's just getting really punished for it this time around. And I think that's such a good thing, too, of, one of the troubles I had in baseball was all right, how do you start the year? But for me, to start this season, it's been all right, let's find the guys who either had buy signs or sell signs and just start from there and let the data grow. And Josiah Gray is such a good example of, if you looked at the underlying metrics, you kind of saw a guy now, was it going to be this extreme? I didn't think so. But a guy that was kind of worth playing against here, it's going to be interesting to see. And for a team like the Pirates, we were texting in our group chat earlier today. It's fascinating, too, with a team like the Pirates. Everything's going through for them at this point right now. So, are they as good as they have looked? Britton would say yes, producer Britton. But there's going to be some sort of regression. They coming into today, they have struck out a quarter of the time, which is somewhat high, and yet their batting average of balls in play is nearly 400. Their walk rate's really high. It's nuts what's happening with Pittsburgh right now. So there might be some regression coming, but it's a good way to look at these things.
Josiah Gray will be pitching in San Francisco next week, if you're wondering the next time you'll see the starter for the Washington Nationals. All right, real quickly, 3 games still to come in the 7 o'clock Eastern hour. You mentioned you like over in the Knicks and Kings game, which will start at 7:30 Eastern. Quick thoughts, Atlanta-Dallas coming up right now, 11.5, Hawks and Mavs, and then Sixers and Heat also in the next hour as well.
So I put it real simply in the write-up on the website. Atlanta-Dallas, I think it's a pretty poor spot for Atlanta. 6 game in 9 days, no rest. Dallas is back home after a short trip, but they did really well. You're buying at the top of the market. This is easy game. I think you'll get a pretty cheap in-game price on Dallas at some point. You could buy that. And for Philly-Miami, just wait for official word. It looks like Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid are going to play, but we still, I've been burned before. Just wait until they're going to be out there, and this line will settle in.
All right. Market be damned. We're going at you, Seton Hall. Let's go Sycamores. Indiana State on the money line. That game starts top of the hour.